The HOA president thought humiliating an elderly military veteran in front of the entire neighborhood would prove she was in charge. Instead, it became the biggest mistake of her life. What started as a simple HOA dispute quickly turned into a community rebellion that nobody saw coming. The veteran never yelled. He never threatened anyone. He never even raised his voice. But after what happened at that meeting, neighbors started uncovering things about the HOA that had been hidden for years. By the time the story reached its conclusion, the woman who thought she had embarrassed one man was desperately trying to save her own position. And the most surprising part of all was that the veteran himself never asked anyone to fight for him. Before we get into this story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Karen Stories Daily for more haunt drama, entitled Neighbor Stories and Unbelievable Real-Life Conflicts. My name is Jason, and I had lived in the neighborhood long enough to know when something was wrong. Looking back, the night everything changed seemed ordinary at first. Residents arrived at the monthly HOA meeting, expecting the usual discussions about landscaping, maintenance, and community projects. Nobody expected the meeting to become the most talked-about event in neighborhood history. One of the residents attending that evening was a retired military veteran named Robert. Robert was respected by almost everyone. He had lived in the community for years. He was known for helping neighbors without expecting anything in return. When storms damaged fences, Robert helped with repairs. When elderly residents needed assistance, Robert showed up. When community events needed volunteers, Robert was usually one of the first people there. He never sought attention. He never asked for recognition. That was one reason people respected him so much. The HOA president was a woman named Linda. At first, she seemed dedicated to improving the neighborhood over time. However, many homeowners began noticing changes. Violation notices became more common. Arguments became more frequent. Residents felt that Linda was becoming increasingly aggressive in her leadership style. Many people were frustrated, but few wanted to challenge her directly. Then, Robert received a violation notice. The issue involved an American flag displayed on a flagpole in his front yard. The flagpole had existed for years. No previous board had objected to it. Most residents viewed it as completely normal. Linda disagreed. She claimed the flagpole violated community appearance standards and ordered Robert to remove it. Robert was surprised. He reviewed the rules. He contacted the HOA. He politely requested clarification. Instead of receiving answers, he received additional notices. The situation continued, escalating. Eventually, Robert decided to attend an HOA meeting and address the issue directly. Neighbors expected the matter to be resolved through discussion. After all, Robert was reasonable. Most people assumed the board would listen. Instead, they witnessed something very different. When Robert stood up to speak, he remained calm and respectful. He explained his concerns. He asked questions. He requested clarification regarding the alleged violation. Before he could finish, Linda interrupted him. Then she interrupted him again and again. The room became noticeably uncomfortable. Residents exchanged looks. People could sense the tension growing. Then, Linda made a comment that immediately changed the atmosphere in the room. She suggested that Robert's military service did not make him special and implied that residents were only supporting him because he was a veteran. The room went completely silent. Nobody expected her to say it. Nobody expected her to say it that way. Even several board members looked shocked. Robert stood there quietly for a moment. Then he simply thanked the board for their time and sat down. No argument, no shouting, no drama, just silence. But as residents left the meeting that night, something unusual happened. Instead of discussing the flagpole, everyone was talking about Linda. And over the next few days, that conversation would grow into something far bigger than she ever imagined. The morning after the meeting, the entire neighborhood seemed to be talking about what had happened. People who normally ignored HOA drama were suddenly discussing it with friends and neighbors. Videos from the meeting began, circulating in community groups. Residents replayed the moment over and over. The more people watched it, the more upset they became. Many homeowners felt the issue was no longer about a flagpole. It was about respect. Robert, meanwhile, refused to make a big deal out of the situation. When neighbors approached him, he simply thanked them for their concern and encouraged everyone to stay civil. That response only increased the respect people already had for him. Over the next few weeks, residents started attending AA meetings in larger numbers. People who had never participated before suddenly became involved. They began asking questions. Questions about fines. Questions about spending. Questions about rule enforcement. Questions about decisions that previously went unchallenged. For the first time in years, the HOA leadership faced serious scrutiny. Linda seemed frustrated by the sudden attention. She insisted everything was being handled properly. But homeowners were no longer satisfied with simple answers. They wanted documentation. They wanted transparency. They wanted accountability. As more residents became involved, old complaints started resurfacing. Several homeowners shared stories about situations where they felt they had been treated unfairly. Others described inconsistent enforcement of HOA rules. Individually, those stories might not have meant much. Together, they painted a concerning picture. The pressure continued growing. Community meetings became packed. Residents filled every available seat. The atmosphere had completely changed. People who once stayed silent were now speaking openly. Eventually, a group of homeowners organized a petition requesting leadership changes within the HOA. The response was overwhelming. Signatures poured in. Many residents who had never participated in AAA matters before decided they wanted their voices heard. Linda tried to defend her leadership, but trust had already been damaged. The more she argued, the more support she seemed to lose. A few months later, HOA elections were held. Voter turnout reached record levels. Homeowners wanted change. When the results were announced, several leadership positions changed hands. The community elected new representatives who promised greater transparency and better communication. For many residents, it felt like a fresh start. As for Robert, he never celebrated the outcome. He never bragged. He never acted like he had won anything. In fact, he continued, living exactly as he always had, helping neighbors, volunteering at community events, treating people with kindness. The flagpole remained in place. The flag continued flying, and life slowly returned to normal. Looking back, the lesson was simple. Linda believed authority alone would earn respect. Robert had earned respect through years of actions. When the two were tested, the difference became obvious to everyone. Today, whenever new residents move into the neighborhood, someone eventually tells them the story. Not because of the HOA drama, not because of the election, but because it reminds people that leadership is not about power. It is about how you treat others. If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments what you would have done if you had witnessed that meeting. And do not forget to share this video and subscribe to Karen's Stories Daily for more HOA drama, neighborhood conflicts, and unbelievable real-life stories. Sometimes one moment can change an entire community.